and say that Echo saws are junk or Husqvarna saws are junk and that they don't last, I'm not enjoying myself on this cut, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely not. Oh my gosh. Echo, I think you ought to hire the gentleman that designed this for you. We've gone from that right there. I may eat humble pie on this. Absolute thumbs up from me, as long as there's no long-term issues like... Welcome to the Okie Woodsman channel. Are you wondering if this A2 Designs air cleaner and filter setup is worth a darn? I just installed it. This is going to be the first run. One of the things I'm curious about is the tune going to be way off? Is it going to be lean? Is it going to be rich? I did have this saw into some wood just the other day, and I fattened it up a little bit because in large bucks, it needed the fuel. What that means is that in small wood, it does have that four-stroke burble thing that I really don't prefer, but that's just, I think, how it's going to be. If you'd like to know more about this air cleaner, make sure you check the installation video that I've already posted. At the end, what we'll do is we'll take a look at what the pre-filter looks like, and I'll talk about whether or not I noticed anything. Let's get started. You know, I'm quite fond of this gramp stick, as they've become known as. If you're not familiar with what that is a 16-inch measuring stick that Willie's Firewood uses up in Maine. They cut a ton of wood, and 78-year-old Gramps cuts cords and cords all the time. Last I talked to him, I want to say that Russ said they use 15 gallons of two-stroke a week. I want to say this to all the people that make comments and say that Echo saws are junk and that they don't last, or Husqvarna saws are junk and that they don't last. Gramps has been using the 372 forever, a really long time. It's tired, it's still running. He runs the crud out of it. Ask Russ how their rakers are set. I think you'll be pretty astonished. And then now they've moved to a 7310 and a 620. I think that speaks for itself. First, what I'm going to do is I need to get this saw warmed up. You're going to see me kind of play with it a little bit, cut some smaller wood, see how it's feeling, get the engine warm. These 620s I've found take absolutely forever to warm up. And so when I'm bucking the wood, I really want to know that the saw is in its happy place. This chain is super at the end of its life. Most of the teeth are filed to the line or past the line. Remember, this is dead red oak. We're not going to throw big fluffy chips like is so often said that's how it's going to be. It's not always the case. And please spare me that a new chain is dull. Sharpness is on a scale. As soon as you put your razor sharp chain into a piece of wood, that sharpness is going down. Is it dull after a half cut? Again, please spare me. give it a little bit more fuel. Now, I do have some low raker blues. I filed with that Ferd 2-in-1 setup, the 404 one, and I really do think that the rakers are a little too low on that, especially for a 60cc saw here. So I've had the question, how much do I tune these? I'm going to the high jet. The limiters have been removed on this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna crack it. I'm gonna call it maybe an 1/8 turn. We're gonna crack it back. That might have been a 1/4. We're gonna get it back in the wood and see how it feels, see how it sounds too. I haven't released the footage yet, but I did cut with this saw at the White Oak job, and I was cutting cookies. I was just having fun with the 460, the 395 in this saw. On that video, I had to fatten this saw up a little bit. I actually fattened it up about this much there as well. That day was colder than it is today. My understanding is a lot of times when it is colder, you do have to fatten it up. But what's interesting is this saw had to get fattened up today, and we're like closer to 40 degrees, and the last time I cut was like 20, I think. Now, very interesting, because what that almost tells me is it seems like the saw might be getting more air, like it might be breathing more. So in my mind, what that tells me is it needs more fuel. It cut way better there than it did in these cuts. These cuts right here, it was going bat, bat, bat all the time. This one, I could put the dogs up against the wood with aggressive rakers and have it eat. I think that's a win. Let's keep cutting. We're gonna crack it back a little bit more. Again, we're going on the high jet and we're backing it out. I'd say a 1/4 turn on that one there. let's talk about this here. This chain, if you look at it from the cuts, it looks like it is dull as all get out, okay? So if you take a look, here's my teeth. They're very, very, very small. I'm not going to use this chain anymore. It's not cutting to my satisfaction. The wood is frozen, the wood is hard. And I also want to say this, and I mean this seriously. Don't let emotions, don't let emphaticness take charge here, but this is not, it's not the chips I want. You can see the chain's not dull, okay? You can absolutely see it. I filed this last with the steel 2-in-1 4/3/8 chain, and it's just not cutting fantastically. I would say that. My rakers are low, and it's not just throwing great chips. Now, at the same time, this is crotch wood. This is the kind of wood you don't want for firewood. This is tree service type wood. So this is, in my opinion, and I'm asking for you guys to share. If you can, let me know if I'm wrong. And keep in mind, we've been sitting overnights. We've been getting down into 4 and 5 degrees, sustained freeze for a while. This red oak is hard, and I'm not enjoying myself on this cut, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely not. I kind of want to swap onto a larger chain, a chain with more meat on it, and I want to compare that. I've swapped the chain, and I want to show you what I found. We've gone from that right there to the Husqvarna C83. That one is used, however, it is not as used. And you'll see that this chain certainly could maybe have a more pronounced C shape on the bottom, but this chain's done. You hear all the time that the chain is at its best at the end of its life. I actually have not found that to be the case in my cutting scenarios. I'm not that familiar with saw racing and all that, and I know that when they are racing saws, they get them like as lean and as light and as filed back as possible. For my circumstances, in the wood that I cut, it doesn't seem that's the case. Chris at In the Wood Yard is adamant that a chain just doesn't cut well when it's back this far. In fact, I want to say that he might even say that this is getting close to not cutting as well. And to that man, time is money, because he's not out there just enjoying to cut. He's producing firewood. I enjoy cutting more so than I do producing firewood. This is the chain that you all saw me buck the white oak log. That was a green log. With the 7310 in a previous video, and it cut well. I have not touched it. It's going to be hungry with the rakers for sure. So I just want to see what this is doing, and I would love for you guys to share in the comment section. I may eat humble pie on this. I started off saying my chain's sharp. I think it is sharp, but I think the profile, the tooth geometry, how far down, all of it, wood species, all of that might matter. Oh, and I mentioned racing saws. Don't they typically use some sort of softer wood, whether it be like pine or fir or poplar, whatever you want to call it? Again, share with me down below. I think that was pretty interesting. It definitely cross-cut, I think, a little bit better, but once I got into that crotch wood, it wasn't significantly better, I wouldn't say. I mean, the wood looks like sawdust coming out. It did have nicer chips, like I said, going through the nicer, just going straight across the grain like a cross-cut. But once that grain started doing this and you start cutting partially to the ends of the grain, to the fibers going this way, once you get into here, or you start getting into this kind of angle, it's just not that good. Let's real quickly take a look at this air cleaner and see how it did, everybody. I'd really like all of your guys' input on that. Cutting into like a silver maple, I think it's called a soft maple in some parts of the country, it's just so nice. And then, cutting into green, sycamore, pine, all that's nice. So let's take a look and see how this A2 Designs did. What's nice is I already see some of the tidbits falling off of it. All right, let's see what happened here. I think all the dust that got in there just literally got in there from this. No, I think there's some fines in here. I think that maybe the chips go through here or get stuck on this and don't pack in here, and there is some fines. Let's take a look at how the actual air cleaner is looking. And I mean, in terms of a stress test, this is probably the best possible test you can have, right? Because, people will tell you, hey, your Saws doll, you're cutting chips. Oh my gosh. Well, let's zoom in here. Look how pretty that is in there. Wow. Echo, I think you ought to hire the gentleman that designed this for you. That is fantastic. That is super clean. That's better than my Husky 562. I can tell you that, and my 545. That filter has no reason, I think, in those saws to underperform like they do. They let fines in, and I can't tell you why. We got some fines in there, but that's no big deal. In fact, let me pull this off. Let's pull the filter and see how we look. All right, that's after one tank. That's dumb, I did that right by the intake, but the wind is blowing this way and it didn't go in. Plus my choke's out. I can tell you that is an absolute initial win for the A2 Designs filter there, no doubt. So the outer wears definitely keeps the chips out of the intake, and then the fines, then the filter gets to focus only on the fines. That makes a lot of sense, because those big chips can certainly pack in. Oh, there we go. Initially, if you want to know what my opinion is about the A2 Designs intake and filter setup, absolute thumbs up from me. as long as there's no long-term issues like the 3D print failing, breaking, or anything like that. The design is spot on. It's fantastic. If you want to see my installation video, make sure you check that out, because I do show a couple little tabs that you trim off of the top cover. So it's not a big deal. It hardly looks different than it was stock, and it's something to definitely consider. Thank you so much for joining me here on this episode. We're cutting up this what would be considered tree service wood, frozen hard red oak, dead, and it was a blast. We ran a full tank through the 7310 and a full tank and probably about a quarter through the 620 ported saw. I'm going to trim up a little bit more of the wood, but we're going to do that off camera. Just help them out so that way they can drag brush and move it where they want. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. I did that